Congratulations. It is important this be the first word spoken to you as a couple choosing to get married, choosing to commit yourself to a lifelong union of love that is open to the gift and blessing of children. We want to celebrate with you this momentous decision in your life. We also want to say thank you for making this decision. Your decision to enter into marriage is a genuine blessing for our human community as you remind us of the desire of persons to give themselves generously and freely in love to one another. You therefore renew us in hope as we see in your commitment to each other that the power of love continues to be at work in our world, transforming individual lives and the life of our community. Thank you. We cannot overemphasize the significance of the decision you are making in choosing to get married. Think of what has led you to this critical moment in your individual lives and your life as a couple. What first attracted you to each other? How did you enter into a real relationship with each other? Did it flow easily, smoothly, and seamlessly? Or was it circuitous, fraught with doubts and questions, but ultimately arriving at a point where you knew that you were meant for each other, that you wanted to spend the rest of your lives together in an exclusive relationship of love? As your relationship evolved, what brought you happiness, joy, fulfillment, a sense of gratitude that you found each other? It is important for you as a couple to reflect on these questions as you prepare to make the commitment that marriage requires, as your reflections remind you of how your relationship has grown and changed, how you've come to know love, trust, and confidence in each other that allows you to say an unequivocal yes to the question, will you marry me? Will you commit yourself to me in faithfulness and love all the days of your life? As you reflect on how your relationship has grown, evolved, and deepened to the point where you're now ready to make this total self-gift in love to each other, in which you will be forever faithful to each other, it is important to reflect as well upon how each of you has had to negotiate matters of importance to each of you, requiring your mutual patience, your mutual goodwill, your mutual good humor, and that mutual affection that you felt for each other that was becoming a love that would move you to want to join yourselves together forever. I think of couples whose marriages I have witnessed, whose personalities, personal history, and even their religion were quite different from each other. And still you could see in the ease with which each related to the other that they were truly in love with each other. Their love helped them to navigate the tricky waters of their distinct personalities, the differences in their family backgrounds, and the challenging reality that each belonged to two distinct faith traditions. Their journey to their marriage day demanded they be truly attentive to each other and understanding of each other. It also demanded a willingness to compromise what could be compromised and an ability to find a way forward together in what could not be compromised. It was the hard work of forging a true relationship of love that prepared them for the commitment they would make to each other in marriage. All those skills you acquired in navigating the sometimes rough waters of relationship prior to marriage will now be needed in the even more demanding context of your marriage. How will your respective families participate in the new life you're creating together? What are the boundaries that you will set for how you relate to your extended families? What are the financial goals you have set for yourselves? And what are you willing to sacrifice to achieve those goals? If you are both Catholics, what will your commitment be to a faith community? And what will you be willing to give to that community in terms of your time, your talent, and your treasure? If you are of two faith traditions, how will you honor both of those traditions, particularly for those times that are of special importance to each tradition? When will you have children? How many children will you have? How will you raise your children? What are the core values that you want your children to have? And how will you communicate those values to your children? Will you bring your children up in the practice of a faith tradition? That is, will you make the needed commitment to make their participation in that faith tradition real and meaningful? What will guide you in the decisions you make regarding your respective careers, particularly when one of your careers might require relocation to a new city, a new state, or even a foreign country? How will you decide your respective responsibilities for your children relative to the demands of your careers? These are some of the questions, issues that will need to be addressed as you now make the commitment to enter a lifelong, faithful union of love open to children. None of these should pose insurmountable hurdles for you. if you have the experience and development of your relationship prior to marriage, of being attentive to each other, understanding of each other, eager to cooperate with each other, able to negotiate respectfully with each other, and able to compromise where possible, and to find a way forward where compromise is not possible. If you've been paying attention, you have heard me repeat a number of times what are the three core elements of marriage, of the relationship into which you're now entering. These are the three essential values of marriage. Your love for each other is now called to be faithful, forever, and fruitful. Faithful, forever, and fruitful. This is the commitment you're making to each other when you commit yourself to marriage. Faithful. In marriage, you're promised to make a total self-gifted love one to the other, in which you hold nothing back from the other. Drawing upon all that helped you to cultivate your relationship before marriage, and drawing upon new skills and gifts that your marriage has demanded of you, you should be growing in a rich intimacy and love in which you and your spouse are so deeply bound together that it is impossible for you to think of even alienating your affections for your spouse, whether in thought, word, or deed. This is the depth of faithfulness which you are called in marriage. Think of how challenging that faithfulness truly is in our contemporary world, where such faithfulness is not always honored, and where such faithfulness can be so easily compromised. That faithfulness, for example, can be compromised in an overly friendly exchange of text messages between you and a friend or colleague of the opposite sex. That faithfulness is certainly compromised when you avail yourself of pornography on your tablet, phone, or computer. Studies have shown that when spouses view pornography, it has a demonstrably negative impact on their marriage. Married couples must be much more deliberate and conscious of ways that they are compromising the fidelity to which they are called in their marriage, by the way they relate to friends or colleagues, by the way they communicate with friends or colleagues, and by their willingness to come to the ease with which sexually gratifying material is available to them. Committing yourself to a faithful union of love demands much of each of you, but what it demands is far less than what you gain, a mutual trust and confidence in each other that deepens your love for each other. Forever. If you are living in a rich, deep, faithful intimacy of love, then you can expect that your relationship will last forever, that it will be permanent, and ending only with the death of your spouse. A permanent relationship of faithful love is the good fruit borne by the effort each of you make to cultivate a relationship in which you're giving all of yourselves to each other, and doing so with gladness, with joy, and with a deep desire to be intimately one with your spouse. There is no denying the hard work, the real sacrifices, and the real commitment such intimacy demands of a married couple. But there is no denying as well the beauty of seeing a relationship that lasts the lifetime of the spouses. Think of the persons whom you have known who are married 40, 50, 60 years, or even more. Consider all that couple has experienced together. The joys, the sorrows, the trials, the moments of great accomplishments, the times of great satisfaction, the times of deep disappointment, the times of great hope, the times of great anxiety. Through it all, they did not simply persevere, but grew in their closeness to each other, their intimacy with each other, and of course, their love for each other. Many times, young married couples think that it is imperative that they frequently offer each other public displays of affection. As they mature, they come to understand that their simple presence with each other is sufficient to communicate how much they love each other and care for each other. Again, think of couples whom you know have been married for many years. They may not offer each other frequent displays of public affection, but is there any doubt in your mind as to how deeply they love each other? What a great gift you offer our world when you are faithful to each other for the length of your lives. You show the world what love makes possible, and thereby challenge the world to let love prevail over selfishness and self-seeking. Fruitful. Where love is truly deep and strong, it necessarily overflows from its source. True love is never selfish, but is always self-giving. The sexual intimacy that you share in marriage should be a beautiful expression of the depth of love you feel for each other, an expression of that total self-gift and love you're called to make one to the other. In opening your heart to the gift and blessing of children, you are affirming that your love is so rich, so full, so abundant, that you want it to find expression in the new life that you're capable of creating together. What a beautiful blessing it is to be instruments through whom new life is created, especially as that new life renews your hope and the hope of the world in which you live, of the possibilities and promise of the future. To refuse to be open to children is a denial of what marriage is called to be, an experience of superabundant love that necessarily seeks to find expression outside of itself. Sadly, there are some couples who are simply incapable of bearing children despite their desire for children. Their marriage can be richly fruitful, whether it is through adoption, foster parenting, or simply making themselves available in service to their faith community and to the larger community in which they live. Their faithfulness and love to each other, despite the deep disappointment and pain they feel in not being able to have children, is itself richly fruitful, as it awakens within all of us an awareness that love enables us to overcome the challenges, the sufferings, and deep disappointments that are ours. As you contemplate just how significant your commitment to be married truly is, let me add one more point that underscores the remarkable nature of what it is that you're about to do. Who is the minister of marriage? Who is it that effects the bond of love between a man and woman such that they are now entered into a faithful, permanent, and fruitful relationship of love? In the Catholic tradition, most couples assume it is the priest or the deacon. In the Protestant tradition, one might assume that it is the priest or the minister. In the Jewish tradition, one might think it is the rabbi. The actual ministers of marriage are the couples themselves. A husband and wife marry each other. A husband and wife marry each other. In your mutual consent to enter a lifelong, faithful union of love open to children, you yourselves are effecting that bond of love that you're called to nourish, strengthen, and deepen for the remainder of your lives together. The priest, minister, or rabbi are simply official witnesses of your respective faiths, persons charged with blessing the marriage you have effected in the name of your faith community. But you are the ones who are marrying each other. You should remember this on your wedding day. It is you who are the ones who are bringing forth your own marriage through your public consent to freely give of yourselves to each other in love for the remainder of your days. As you make your promises to each other, think of what it is that you yourselves are doing and how beautiful and wonderful it is that you're doing it. Having come to this moment when you're prepared to enter a relationship that is faithful, forever, and fruitful, why are you choosing to have your marriage in a church or other sacred space, witnessed and blessed by an ordained representative of a given faith tradition? Here are some honest answers to that question. It is just the way we always imagined marriage to be, something you did in a pretty church or other sacred space, with pretty music and with a healthy but not excessive dose of religion. It means a lot to my parents or to my spouse's parents. It just seems more significant or more socially acceptable to have the ceremony in a sacred space rather than some secular venue or outdoor location. These are all reasons that have led persons to seek marriage within a sacred space, and all of them are understandable, if not necessarily the ideal motivation in seeking to have your marriage in a church or a sacred space. A church is more than a building. On occasion, I like to go into St. Ignatius at night to pray. As I sit there in that vast, beautiful space in perfect quiet and peacefulness, I open my heart to reflect on what this church has meant to the people who have populated it for more than 100 years. I breathe in the smell of incense that has filled the nave of the church on days of great solemnity, especially Easter and Christmas, which also filled that nave on days of great sadness when a loved one has been brought to our church to be commended to the loving mercy of God. I think of the great diversity of peoples who have prayed in the pews of our church, and how our church has been a steady source of refuge through wars, economic crises, terrorist attacks, times of social unrest and political uncertainty. I think too of the times when our church has hosted ecumenical services of prayer, in which persons of diverse faiths have found common purpose in lifting up their hearts and voices to the one God who has gifted us all with the gift of life and called us all to be instruments of God's love in the world. I think of how the remarkable beauty of our church is only possible because of the gifts of so many persons, the majority of whom are anonymous to us, some having given out of their surplus, but others having given out of their real need. Reflecting on the meaning of that space to all who have populated our pews for over 100 years, I come to a deeper appreciation of what a church is. It is that place in which a community of faith gathers to offer praise, worship, and thanksgiving to God for God's marvelous, abundant gifts to us, and that earnestly and fervently beseeches God for the graces we need to be the persons of love, mercy, compassion, generosity, and self-giving that we are called to be. A church or other sacred space is the gathering place for those who welcome God in their lives. For those of you for whom participation in a faith tradition is already an important part of your lives, I hope that your choice to be married in our church or some other sacred space deepens and strengthens your attachment to a community of faith. I hope that you'll want your children to share your faith and to share your experience of sacred space, your experience of coming together with the diversity of persons who gather each week to welcome God in their lives. For those of you who are not now active members of a faith community, I hope your experience of your marriage in a sacred space, whether ours or someplace else, will stir within you an openness to become members of a faith community. It is my great desire that your experience is such that it may dispel whatever concerns, biases, or fears that have kept you away from joining a faith community, so that you'll now seek a community of faith to call your own. And whatever your situation may be, please respect the sacred space in which you're celebrating your marriage. Respect what this space means to all who have entered its doors. Do not treat that sacred space as if it were no different than the place in which you will have your reception. Your marriage is being celebrated in a space that is sacred, a place in which we encounter God. Act accordingly, and please invite your guests to do the same. Our Catholic Christian Church has more than 2,000 years of history. In the course of that history, the Church used to offer an exhortation to couples who came to the church to have their marriages witnessed and blessed by a priest or deacon of the church. There is a part of that exhortation that continues to carry great relevance for couples entering into marriage, and I wish to share it with you. Not knowing what it is before you, you take each other for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health until death. Truly then, these words are most serious. It is a beautiful tribute to undoubted faith in each other that, recognized in their full import, you are nevertheless so willing and ready to pronounce them. And because these words involve such solemn obligations, it is most fitting that you rest the security of your wedded life upon the great principle of self-sacrifice. And so you begin your married life by the voluntary and complete surrender of your individual lives in the interest of that deeper and wider life which you are to have in common. Henceforth, you will belong entirely to each other. You will be one in mind, one in heart, and one in affections. And whatever sacrifice you may hereafter be required to make to preserve this mutual life, always make them generously. Sacrifice is usually difficult and irksome. Only love can make it easy, and perfect love can make it a joy. And when love is perfect, the sacrifice is complete. No greater blessing can come to your married life than pure conjugal love, loyal and true to the end. May then this love with which you join your hands and hearts today never fail, but grow deeper and stronger as the years go on. And if true love and the unselfish spirit of perfect sacrifice guide your every action, you can expect the greatest measure of earthly happiness that may be allotted to men and women in this vale of tears. The rest is in the hands of God. Rest the security of your wedded life upon the great principle of self-sacrifice. Sacrifice is usually difficult and irksome. Only love can make it easy, and perfect love can make it a joy. May each of you embrace the sacrifices your marriage calls forth from you in the spirit of selfless, self-giving love that is the essence of marriage. If you live a life of mutual sacrifice and genuine love, then you can be assured of a long and happy life together.